News from heaven. We're going to look at how the Bible made a spirit fly today. Listen, you got to have a hot take. You got to have a hot take on the Bible. If you're going to try to say we're going to put the new in this world of spirituality together with the old, you got to figure out what's the Bible doing in there. If you're going to reconcile some kind of spiritual connection to a broad swath of reality, and you can't ignore the impact of the Bible in the minds. What's your hot take? Like, what is the Bible? Why is it there? What's it doing? And Swedenborg is this insanely unexpected meeting point for all these different things: the spiritual, the East, the West, the rational, the orderly, all meeting in the middle. And yet he doesn't just kind of say, "Oh yeah, the Bible's kind of cool," but it's there in the middle. And how does it do that? And how does it interact with the spiritual world? And why do you have this thing? What is this weird book? These are the questions we're going after today. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you don't mind. Hey, sign up to be a monthly supporter, otlemonthly.cosvox.com. How else are you going to expect us to make these crazy shows in the first place? Download Secrets of Heaven. This is going to be volume 2. It's for free in the link there. And hopefully, even as we look into how the Spirit flies, we find something that applies to every spirit. And can we also be lifted up above whatever it is that's bothering you this week? Because I guarantee you, what's bothering you isn't going to last. Everything that's really bothered me eventually doesn't scare me like it used to. But how do we get out of it beyond just sort of aging out? Well, you got to learn something. You got to learn something that takes your mind to a perspective where you can actually look down. You ever look at an airplane at a neighborhood as you're coming down the airport? Things do not look as menacing as they do from the ground. So can we get into that perspective? Hopefully so. All right, we're beginning Secrets of Heaven 1767. The title is entitled Sacred Scripture, or the Word, which conceals a divine message that lies open to the view of good spirits and angels. Right here, we got a hot take. Everyone's like, what is that? What are you even talking about? Sacred Scripture, or the Word. This is the Bible, although it's this fascinating thing where the Word is more expansive than the packaging of the Bible and can pop up in other spots. We will actually be addressing that some here today. But for all intensive purposes here, he's talking about the Bible, which conceals a divine message. What is this? I thought it just was. It conceals a divine message. Could it be that the stuff when you open up a page and find something in the Bible that seems irrelevant or morally or ethically shocking or horrifying, could there be something underneath it? There's some parts that just seem obviously uplifting, but what's this? Why have you got this conceals in here? And that lies open to the view of good spirits and angels. That there's actually a direct access that is the constant way in which angels and spirits are interacting with this same thing that you can access by reading the text of this book. Oh, I got to see how this one turns out. Some people love the Lord's word and live a kind and charitable life. Okay, fine. I won't argue with that there. And look at how this is an indispensable part of the equation. So we got people, they're loving the Lord's word. So in this case, and in Swedenborg day especially, we're talking about, the Bible is everywhere. It's everything to everyone, so it's there. So what's that? Is it a bat? No, it's the Bible. This is the book with the stories that you may be very familiar with, or you may be vaguely repelled by. Whatever it is, here it is. So let's see what that thing is doing. So you have some people who are living a kind and charitable life, and they love this thing. Others believe what it says in a simple-hearted way, without making assumptions that undermine the religious truth of its inner meaning. Okay. So right away, there's an issue here, because you've got these stories. They just believe what it says in a simple-hearted way. So this is inferring that if you just go in there and say, oh, well, the Bible says wash your hands, so you got to wash your hands, that could be potentially, it's cool. It can get you somewhere, but that's not what's actually going on there. That there is some inner meaning behind these stories. And if you can address this text literally, if you're doing it from love in a way, but only if it's in a way that doesn't actually contradict what's really in there. So let's say it's love and truth that's in there, which you know is coming. If you pull something out of it that makes you live contrary to that, then we got a problem. But if it's letting you live in harmony with that, okay, it's good, it's good. All right, so this is not too shocking right now, but let's make it shocking really fast. When the word is read by either kind of person, simple heart, love the Lord, love the word, live a good life, simple-hearted, it is displayed by the Lord before angels' eyes with tremendous beauty and charm, accompanied by visual representations and adapted with inexpressible variety to every phrase they are then passing through. So suddenly, we're out here in the realm of what is he talking about? That as we read this, simple-hearted or because you're living a good life, right? Some kind of positive reading of it, whatever's in here. And why did I go from purple to red? I don't know, but I'm there. Okay, let's say this purple turns red, and the red goes all the way up to where there's angels, which is us in the spiritual state if we choose to love the goodness and the truth that's made available. And not just, this person is reading this part of the Bible where Jesus is turning water into wine. So you see water, wine. Something is coming out there that has tremendous beauty. There is some complex, interwoven, transcendent thing that somehow comes out of this text that we perceive simply, that dazzles angels and uplifts them. Something, the soul of it, is appearing before their eyes. And look at this, every phrase that they are then passing through. So each little part here corresponds. Every little verse you go through corresponds with something that is truly, obviously alive and divine up here. The beauty and charm are so great that every single facet is perceived as alive. Do you always get, if you read the Bible stories, you always get the feeling like this is alive? Can't it sometimes seem strange and two-dimensional, and what does this have to do with anything? This is pure life energy, charm. And look at this. This vital energy is the life that lies within the Word. And okay, so far I haven't shocked you. Great. Try this one on. And gave birth to the Word when it was sent down from heaven. So this thing here, the Bible, right, that we think of as, some people think of as the Word. This text, the stories, the words, the pages, is like the body that houses, just like you have a body that houses a spirit, this vital life. This is the Word up here. This is the actual Word, whatever this is. And it came down and took on a body. And the body was this text. I do that like slow finishing a sentence, but if it's for a point that wasn't that amazing in the first place, I think it's amazing. For this reason, the Lord's Word, by its very nature, conceals, there it is again, spiritual and heavenly messages within. And, okay, you've got to have this. You've got to have this. No matter how unpolished it seems in the letter. Because we can't have a conversation about the Bible if you don't acknowledge that if you're saying, look, the Bible is from God, it's so great. There's a multitude of issues that come with that. And I really like the Bible. But there's a multitude of issues that come from that. The least of which is that it's crude. It's not as well written as a lot of other books you can grab. It's simple. There's not a lot of character development. How unpolished it seems in the letter. This was zero deterrent to Swedenborg. Because he's not saying, look, this is God authoring this thing to try to sound better than who's the best writer, Shakespeare or Edgar Allan Poe or something like that. This is about that this is a container for this. And not just a container, but a connector. That because this is in stories that we can understand, we can be reading this even, and not just a very specialized connector. I'm sorry, I will finish my first thought. That we can understand as we're reading through these little stories, it is able to connect us and somehow supply. I drew these down arrows, but there are up arrows as well. We can supply these angels with this amazing connection to the living truth. But it's also done in a way that it's not just for a sort of elite, you got to know a ton of stuff to get it. We can, if we're just living a kind and charitable life, or we're even just buying into it in a simple-hearted way, it can still create this connection. This is a tool for mass access and mass connection, even though it's confusing. And yeah, it's unpolished in the letter. These inner messages lie open to the view of good spirits and of angels when people on earth read the word. So we are giving this gift to heaven by interacting with the text, even though the text seems like it has some issues. Since I have been given the opportunity to hear and see that the Lord's word is presented in this way before good spirits and angels, let me report my experiences. You probably thought I forgot that the title was How the Bible Made a Spirit Fly. I think we're going to get something like that right here. Okay. What impact? Because everything that can have an impact on the heart and the mind here. A lot of people can be moved by sacred text, and the Bible, it would be included in that. You can get these feelings of elation or emotion from something that you believe is sacred. And here that's, you couldn't, if I was having it right now, you wouldn't be able to tell really, maybe facial expression, but it doesn't change. You can be feeling really great or really low. Your external doesn't change that much, does it? It doesn't have to. And if you know how to mask things, you can be really low and nobody can know it. That's not how it is in the spiritual world, because the spiritual world, you could also call it, I think as I've said, the psychological world. This is the world that the heart and mind, I shouldn't say heart and mind, that our feelings and thoughts exist in. So there, the external reality, what you can observe, is dictated by feelings and thoughts. So there, the physical things matter here, spiritual things matter there. So there, this kind of thing, this connection, this elation, it shows up in real, tangible ways. A spirit came to me not long after he had left his body. This I could tell. How do you know? This I could tell from the fact that he did not yet realize he was in the other life, but believed he was still living in the world. I think initially everyone's told that, but as we go back into our mindsets we got to work our way out of, we kind of forget. You kind of get into, you think about and that might seem like that's so weird and kooky and seems claustrophobic, but that's how it is in dreams. Only very rarely do you realize you're dreaming. When you're dreaming, you're so locked in that you're just doing what you're doing. I think we get into a state like that, and it's about waking up from that when you really come into spiritual potential. I sensed that he had devoted his time to intellectual pursuits, which I discussed with him. Swedenborg did too, so maybe they felt like they were buddies around it. But then to my amazement, he suddenly soared into the air. And it must have been in a cool sort of way, because Swedenborg's seen a lot, and he's amazed by this. So this spirit has just flown up into the air. What was it? How did it happen, and why? Everything has meaning. It's not just because there's an updraft of physical gas that doesn't have any relation to meaning or purpose. Everything there is connected to something psychological. I decided he's still like, nobody told him. He's like, okay, I got to figure this out. I decided he was the type of person whose ambitions had been lofty, since people like this usually rise into the air. And this is this fascinating negative reflection that you think you're so important, so you look so important, but it's temporary. Or that he thought heaven was at the top of the sky. This kind of person is usually raised aloft in order to learn that heaven is not up high, but deep within. Yeah, it's not here nor there. It's in the heart, but we're not just going to tell you. We're going to show you. Go ahead, look around for it. Do you find it? Okay, now that you know that didn't work, you want to hear something different. So Swedenborg has two theories about this thing. Theory number 1, theory number 2, but they're both wrong. Neither of them are the truth. Here's the truth. I soon perceived, though, that he had been lifted up to a group of angelic spirits, positioned a little out in front and to the right on the first threshold of heaven. He then spoke to me from there, saying he was seeing sights grander than the human mind could ever conceive. So he's up there having some kind of amazing experience. And what's going on with Swedenborg while this is all happening that could be prompting it? While this was happening, I was reading, which I didn't picture during this interaction that Swedenborg is reading this whole time, but he's in the middle of his meditative or devotional practice. The spirits are always around him. This one is just affected by what's going on, or at times Swedenborg seems to use it as kind of a testing mechanism. What happens if I read this? While this was happening, I was reading in the first chapter of Deuteronomy. Oh, it's the Bible, about the Jewish people, specifically the ones sent to scout the land of Canaan and all that it held. So this could well be a story that you feel like, why do I need to know if you're saying the Bible is central to this like important human thing? Why do I need to know this piece of history? And I guess sometimes it's disputed. Did this really happen? Is there archaeological evidence for this stuff? Do other texts of the era support it or corroborate it? Why am I learning about this? And this is just like people are going out to try to look at a land where there's already people living, and they're going to go and take over that land and live. This is not the kind of thing that we feel like we should do these days. Why am I reading about this as a sacred thing? But here is Swedenborg reading about that very thing, and what seems strange and obscure to us, to this spirit, boom, has just lifted this spirit up. And the spirit is observing whatever it is that's there. As I was reading it, he said that he caught none of the contents of the literal meaning. So he couldn't tell you that it's about the land of Canaan, but only those of the spiritual meaning, which were too astounding to describe. So somehow, this story, this humble story, is creating in this spirit, it's not just a different experience, but one that's so awesome and so amazing that he just can't even tell you about it. I think there's an indication that he understands it and it means something, but it's impossible to communicate back to Swedenborg. This occurred on the very threshold of the angelic spirit's heaven. What would it be like in their heaven proper, or in the heaven of true angels? This was just, if you think about the heavens, you can go all the way up into the third heaven. This is different levels of the mind as they open the second. The first, they're all good, but this is just like right here. There's so much more to explore. Then certain spirits present with me, who had previously doubted, see, there's always spirits around Swedenborg everywhere, previously doubted that the Lord's word was like this. No, it's not. There's nothing really going on. It's not this like spiritual technological tool. Began to regret their disbelief. Like, oops, I was wrong about that. In their present state, they said they believed because they had heard from the Spirit that he heard, saw, and perceived it to be so. They're hanging out. They hear from this guy. Oh, actually, there is something going on. Other spirits, however, stood by their disbelief and kept saying it was not true, that it was all imagination. And instead of being, you might think, okay, well, they're going to really get punished for that. They're doubting the holiness of the Lord's word. So what do they get for it? They get a trip to heaven. So they, too, were suddenly swept up high. They talked to me from there and confessed that it was anything but imagination because they really perceived that it was true. So they got to experience it. That's the key. It wasn't just debate, it was experience. In fact, they perceived it more keenly than would ever be possible with any of the senses available during physical life. Soon others too were raised into the same heaven, including someone known to me in bodily life. He gave the same testimony, saying, among other things, that he was too dumbfounded to describe the glory of the word in its inner sense. Speaking with a kind of pity, he expressed astonishment that humans were completely unaware of such things. And it's got to be, if you're really going to say, this is, I think, is an issue some people have. Well, one issue people have with, let's say, the Bible. If it's the word, if this is really some kind of thing that God distributed to the human race, why is it less impressive than the smartphone everyone carries around in their pocket? Why is it confusing? Why does it have moral issues in it? Why does it struggle to be relevant at times? Now, a lot of people are really feel like it's this amazing source of comfort and clarity, but there is this question around it. Why isn't it more like this? This sort of thing that everybody, when they get there, just says, I cannot even tell you how cool this is. I can't believe this. That's more like if God dropped a product. That's what it would be. So, Swedenborg is saying it's there, but it's on the inner level. We have this shell here, this cover on. So that's cool. And hey, right at the end here, let's just drop the most interesting part of this whole thing. Soon others too were raised into the same heaven. Oh shoot, that's not very interesting for me to read the same thing I just read. Ah, yeah, here it is. What is more, he said that from there he could peer deeply into my thoughts and feelings. So being up in this place in heaven where the Word is, as Swedenborg is reading the Word, suddenly this spirit can see into Swedenborg's thoughts and feelings. In them, he saw more than he could tell. What caused them? Just let this soak in, because you can sit there. We've got our world that we're in, right? And you think about all the stuff that disturbs you, right? All this negative stuff I'm drawing coming in from the clouds. And when we are living here, looking out on life and being sort of affected unconsciously by all this stuff, or it comes into our thoughts and feelings, it very much seems ineffable or immeasurable. It's okay, I feel this way, I'm thinking this thing. It's not the kind of thing you can analyze and pick apart. And usually that's to our detriment, because it's this ghostly, majestic sort of world that flings us around, and sometimes it's friendly, but a lot of times it's trying to create these narratives that make us unhappy. What we really can't do, though, is just get in there and really pick it apart. Or can we? This is the promise of how Swedenborg describes what thoughts and feelings are. So you've got what caused these thoughts, how they interacted, how the things in the mind interact. So how your belief in one thing affects your belief in another thing, and what's creating what and what's causing what, where they came from. You're constantly living with this feeling that you're inadequate and you're nothing. It keeps piling in. Is there some kind of hellish propaganda factory that's pumping that into you? Is it just because you actually are inadequate, or is this some kind of false invader in the mind? Who inspired them? That's again related to that same thing. I'm out of highlighter colors. Who inspired them? And then how the mental images mingled with earthly sediment. So some of the stuff Swedenborg is thinking is still got too much of the world on it. The need to separate the two completely, and so on. So up in that perspective, up here, not only could they see the Bible for what it really is, but they could see, Swedenborg for what he really was. You see what's really going on, be able to imagine the most powerful healing psychoanalysis that could ever be available. This is the potential of the spiritual, to sort out what seems like a mess physically, just like you can look at the text of the Bible and see, this seems like a mess. How could this ever be something so amazing and so alive? Well, it can. And this is how. That's the news from heaven. Hope you liked it. If you did, like and subscribe. And if you really did support us, the only way we can make stuff like this is you going to otlemonthly.cosvox.com, becoming a monthly supporter. How'd you like it? Leave a comment as well. Of course, we want to hear, does this help you? How do you get anything positive out of the Bible or out of these ideas? Let us know so that we can know. How could you not want to know this stuff? I appreciate you guys giving a little bit of time here. Hope this goes out with you into your life and brightens up that head weather, chases the clouds away, and then you can pass it along to whoever needs it. Thanks.